Welcome to Beneath the Surface, the Dark Side of Crime, where we dive deep into the darkest stories that are not always what they seem. In today's episode, we explore the chilling and tragic tale of Ashlynn Black, a woman full of life, compassion, and dreams, whose life was cut short in an unimaginable way. Her story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that sometimes hide behind seemingly innocent interactions, and how quickly a life can change. Stay with us as we unravel the details of this heart-wrenching case. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Bright Light of Ashlynn Black. Ashlynn Black was a beacon of light in every room she entered. Born and raised in Layton, Utah, Ashlynn had a natural ability to make people feel comfortable and loved. At 25 years old, she was already making a difference in the world. She had a job that many admired, a caregiver to young children with developmental and educational challenges. For Ashlynn, helping those who couldn't always speak for themselves was not just a job, but a calling. Her heart was as big as her laughter, which could fill an entire room and instantly put people at ease. Beyond her professional life, Ashlynn was a free spirit. She was passionate about vintage shopping, camping in the great outdoors, and listening to the grunge sounds of Nirvana. Her friends and family described her as someone who could effortlessly blend her nurturing side with her adventurous spirit. Ashlynn dreamed of becoming a mother someday, and this dream was shaped by her work. Her job as a carer made her acutely aware of the importance of love, patience, and understanding, traits she hoped to one day share with her own children. Ashlynn's life, full of promise and hope, took a new turn when she joined the world of online dating. Like many in today's digital age, she turned to Tinder to make new connections. It wasn't about desperation. It was about exploring possibilities, finding someone who shared her interests and passions. Little did she know that this app, designed to bring people together, would set the stage for the darkest night of her life. Chapter 2. The Digital World, Meeting Ethan Hunsaker. On May 23, 2020, Ashlynn's routine swipe through Tinder led her to Ethan Hunsaker, a 24-year-old man who seemed to share her enthusiasm for adventure and new experiences. Ethan's profile portrayed him as a charming, outgoing father who had recently gone through a separation. He had a friendly smile and a life that appeared to be in transition, much like Ashlynn's own. They exchanged messages that night, talking about their shared interests and what they hoped to find on the app. They quickly connected, and after just a few exchanges, they decided to meet up. The conversation between them was easy. They found common ground over their love for outdoor activities and their mutual desire for something more meaningful than just a casual fling. Ethan seemed to be just what Ashlynn was looking for: genuine, kind, and interested in getting to know her. The more they talked, the more Ashlynn felt that spark she had been searching for. By the end of their conversation, they had made plans to meet for dinner that evening. Ashlynn had no idea that her life was about to change forever. Ethan, on the other hand, had already decided how the night would unfold. What seemed like an innocent date was, in Ethan's mind, a calculated plan, a plan that would end in tragedy. Chapter 3. A night out at around 9 p.m., Ethan arrived at Ashlynn's home to pick her up. As she stepped outside to greet him, she felt a sense of excitement and curiosity. She wasn't sure where this date would lead, but she was open to the possibility of meeting someone special. Ethan was everything he had promised to be: charming, attentive, and funny. They talked easily as they made their way to a local bar in Layton, where they sat down for dinner and drinks. For several hours, Ashlynn and Ethan enjoyed the evening. They laughed, shared stories, and learned more about each other. It felt natural, and for Ashlynn, it was exactly what she had hoped for. Ethan listened attentively to her stories, and they bonded over their mutual love for travel and their favorite books. Ashlynn felt at ease, her worries fading away as the night wore on. But behind Ethan's smile, something darker was brewing. As the evening came to a close, Ethan suggested they head back to his house. Ashlynn, feeling comfortable with him, agreed. They got into his car and drove to his home, unaware that it would be the last time Ashlynn would ever leave her house alive. Chapter 4. The First Signs of Danger. When they arrived at Ethan's house, Ashlynn didn't feel any sense of danger. The house seemed ordinary, nothing out of the ordinary. They had some light conversation, laughing about the day's events. At some point, Ashlynn followed Ethan inside, and they went to his bedroom. They shared a brief moment of intimacy, and then, as the hours passed, they both fell asleep. But while Ashlynn was resting, something inside Ethan began to shift. His mind, clouded by unspoken demons, began to turn dark. What started as a simple date, a night full of promise, quickly descended into something more sinister. At some point in the dead of night, Ethan woke up to find Ashlynn peacefully sleeping beside him. But that peace was shattered in an instant. In a fit of uncontrollable rage, Ethan began to choke Ashlynn. The moment of violence came out of nowhere. There was no argument, no heated exchange of words, just the sudden, terrifying decision to take her life. Ashlynn fought back, gasping for air, her body struggling as she desperately tried to break free. But Ethan's grip was too strong. Chapter 5. The Final Struggle. Ashlynn's body lay limp, half-conscious, as Ethan's grip tightened around her throat. Her body trembled in fear and disbelief. In those brief moments, Ashlynn's mind raced. Why had this happened? Who was this man? Was she going to die tonight? Her breaths came in desperate gasps, but Ethan's hold was unyielding, his cold, indifferent eyes watching her struggle. The life was draining from her body, but the terror had just begun. Ethan's suffocating hold on her finally loosened, and as Ashlynn collapsed to the floor, choking for air, the silence in the room grew unbearable. She could feel her vision blurring as panic overwhelmed her, but she fought to stay conscious, summoning all her strength to cry out for help. But her voice was stifled by the overpowering sensation of suffocation, and soon her body betrayed her. She slumped to the floor in agony, gasping, fighting with every ounce of strength she had left. Ethan stood up, a strange calmness in his eyes as he watched her struggle. He didn't hesitate. He moved swiftly to the kitchen and grabbed a sharp knife from the counter. As he returned to Ashlynn, lying half-conscious on the floor, he knelt beside her. His movements were deliberate, methodical, almost clinical. He was no longer the charming man she had met earlier that evening. Instead, he was a predator, cold and calculating. With terrifying precision, Ethan began to stab Ashlynn. Each strike was a brutal attack, ripping into her body, a horrifying culmination of the violence he had planned for days. She tried to fight back, but the life was quickly leaving her body, her limbs growing weak as each stab wound deepened. The pain was unimaginable. Ashlynn's vision began to fade, and the room around her grew increasingly blurry. The warmth of her blood spilled out onto the floor, mingling with her tears. Her body was numb, and yet her mind, in those final moments, fought to make sense of the horror unfolding. For 10 agonizing minutes, Ethan watched as the light in Ashlyn's eyes slowly faded. Her body jerked once, then stilled. There was no scream, no final cry for help, just silence. Ethan leaned over her, breathing heavily, his mind seemingly detached from the brutality of his actions. It wasn't about rage or passion. It was about control, about fulfilling a dark desire that had been festering within him for far too long. The moment was final. Ashlynn Black, the woman who had been full of life just hours ago, was now lifeless on the floor. And Ethan, in his sickening calmness, dialed 911, his voice eerily composed, even as he had just taken a life. Chapter 6. The Call to 911. The phone call to 911 came at 3:19 a.m. Ethan's voice was almost absent, like he was reporting a simple, mundane occurrence. "There's blood on the floor," he said, his words quiet and steady. "She's not moving. She's unconscious." The dispatcher, recognizing the gravity of the situation, asked for more details, but Ethan seemed uninterested in anything other than the fact that his victim was no longer breathing. "Do you know her name?" the dispatcher asked. Ethan's response was chilling. "I don't even know her last name." His words were almost casual, as if he was describing something trivial, not the life-altering crime he had just committed. He went on in a detached tone, saying that when the police arrived, they should kill him. It was a bizarre and unsettling request, made by a man who appeared to feel no remorse for what he had done. As the dispatcher continued to talk him through the call, a strange sense of calmness remained in Ethan's voice. This wasn't a man who was panicking over his actions. This was a man who had carried out a premeditated act of violence and was now simply waiting for the consequences. There was no emotion, no fear, just an eerie indifference to the death he had just caused. The dispatcher, while maintaining composure, dispatched officers to the scene. The call ended, and within minutes, police officers were on their way to the house on North Reed Avenue. Chapter 7. The Arrival of Police. When the officers arrived, they found the scene to be as horrific as described. Ashlyn's body was lying face down on the floor of the bedroom. The blood surrounding her painted a grim picture of what had transpired. The paramedics did everything they could, but it was clear that Ashlynn was beyond saving. She had been stabbed multiple times, and the extent of the wounds showed that the attack had been both vicious and prolonged. Ethan was still in the house when the officers arrived, standing in the middle of the room. His body was marked with scratches and bruises, but his demeanor was calm. He offered no resistance as the officers moved in to arrest him. He simply admitted to what he had done, describing the events with unsettling detail. His confession was chilling in its simplicity. He had invited Ashlynn over with the intention of killing her. The officers, confused and disturbed by his calmness, tried to understand the reasoning behind his actions. But Ethan had none. There was no argument that had escalated, no fight. He simply decided to kill her, and when the opportunity presented itself, he carried out his plan with cold precision. Chapter 8. The Confession. Ethan's confession, though brief, was chilling. He explained to the police that he had known from the moment he picked Ashlynn up that evening that he would kill her. There was no specific reason, no argument, no pre-existing conflict, just a deep, uncontrollable urge to take her life. He admitted that his mind had been set on violence, before the evening even began. His calmness as he described the murder made it clear that this was not a crime of passion. It was the execution of a carefully planned act of violence. "I wanted to kill her," he said flatly. "It was always going to happen." Ethan's complete lack of remorse and his disturbing clarity in recounting the crime shocked the investigators. They had dealt with many criminals, but few had shown such a detached indifference to their actions. Chapter 9. The Aftermath. News of Ashlyn's death spread quickly throughout the community, leaving everyone reeling. Neighbors and friends were stunned, struggling to comprehend how someone they had known, someone who seemed like a regular person, could commit such an unthinkable act. Ethan's background painted a picture of someone who had slowly unraveled in the years leading up to the murder. His co-workers described him as a man who had once been friendly and outgoing. But after his divorce, his behavior took a dark turn. He became withdrawn, showing up late to work and often missing shifts. Those who had worked with him recalled his disturbing comments about women, which, in hindsight, were red flags they had dismissed at the time. Autumn, a woman who had known Ethan for years, came forward with her own story. She described how Ethan had relentlessly pursued her, sending her numerous texts and messages, even though she had made it clear she was not interested. She now realized how close she had come to becoming his next victim. She recalled how Ethan had made dark, unsettling remarks about women and had mentioned wanting to hurt them. She hadn't taken these comments seriously at the time, but after hearing about Ashlyn's death, she knew just how close she had come to being targeted by him. Chapter: The Trial and Conclusion. The trial of Ethan Hunsaker began in earnest in 2021. His defense attorneys argued that Ethan had been mentally ill at the time of the murder. They presented evidence of his depression, psychosis, and other mental health issues, including anxiety and alcohol dependency. Despite this, the prosecution maintained that his mental illness did not absolve him of responsibility for Ashlyn's death. In June 2021, Ethan pled guilty to first-degree murder, and he also acknowledged his mental health issues. His confession during the trial mirrored the one he had given to the police. He had planned the murder from the moment he met Ashlynn, and he carried it out with chilling precision. The court sentenced him to 15 years to life in prison, but Ethan would first receive 18 months of treatment at the Utah State Hospital. The judge stated that while Ethan's mental health would be taken into account, the severity of his crime required a harsh sentence. Ashlynn's family, though relieved by the verdict, continued to grieve. In court, Ashlynn's sister delivered an emotional statement about her sister's legacy. She spoke of Ashlynn's kindness, her empathy, and her commitment to helping others. Ashlynn's parents, in their grief, vowed to continue fighting for awareness of the dangers of online dating and to honor their daughter's memory by helping others. Conclusion: Ashlynn Black's life was tragically cut short by a man who saw her as nothing more than a target for his dark desires. Her story is a painful reminder of the risks inherent in the digital age, where trust can be misplaced and danger can hide behind a friendly smile. But Ashlynn's family has vowed to honor her memory and her legacy of kindness, resilience, and compassion. They continue to speak her name, ensuring that her death is not in vain and that others may be spared the same fate. Ashlynn's story has not been forgotten. and it continues to raise awareness about the dangers of online dating and the importance of recognizing red flags in relationships, no matter how harmless they may seem at first. Thank you for watching. If you found this story moving or insightful, please consider subscribing to Beneath the Surface. We bring you more tragic, yet powerful stories from the dark side of crime. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button to show your support. Stay safe, and always remember to trust your instincts.